Whenever the devil harasses you thus, seek the company of men, or drink more, or joke and talk nonsense, or do some other merry thing. Sometimes we must drink more, sport, recreate ourselves, aye, and even sin a little to spite the devil, so that we leave him no place for troubling our consciences with trifles. We are conquered if we try too conscientiously not to sin at all. So when the devil says to you, "Do not drink," answer him, "I will drink and right freely, just because you tell me not to." Martin Luther.
So we moving and grooving?
Yep.
Good. How's it going?
Good.
How was Oklahoma?
Oklahoma was great. The people I was around were complaining about it the whole time. I enjoyed it. Muskogee's, I have no idea. I didn't bother looking. They live in Muskogee. I didn't bother to look to see how big the population is, but it's not a tiny town. It's probably about the size of Tulare.
That's pretty impressive for...
I kind of got the impression that it was like a podunk town, but it's not. I mean, it's an old town that's lost a lot of the original businesses and industries that made for a thriving downtown. So it's like a lot of towns. It's like a lot of Central California towns where it's grown out and there's new stuff, but downtown's kind of run down and decrepit for a variety of reasons. It sounds like a lot of it there is bad zoning, where the city just keeps coming in with old buildings and making them historic sites, and then it becomes too expensive to fix them up, and then they just sit there forever, and then they just become dilapidated to where you're never going to redo them. So that's just bad city planning. I understand the point of trying to keep old charm, and there's a building that used to be like the first doctor's house, so you want to kind of preserve it, but you've got to work with people who are willing to buy it and fix it up or maintain it, and not just be overly onerous on what those rules are. But
be conservative, not preservative.
Yeah. So there's a lot of that, but there's a lot of there's a glass plant.
Nice.
We actually drove past it one morning where they had this huge mound of ground up glass that was had been ground up so it could be repurposed and turned into new glass, and a whole bunch of other businesses and industries. They're right on the Arkansas River, which allows for some commerce. And we went to the sheriff's headquarters one day, and it was nice to see several of his bosses and his coworkers. He's beloved, he's respected. It's nice to see I'm not surprised, but it's nice to see your son's thriving that way. And
yeah,
we got to interact with him and he's in the Masons, which I was giving him all kinds of crap for. I was doing the jokes about they had our grandson's first birthday at the Masonic Lodge, so he was showing me around this place, and it's like 100-year-old building.
Is he allowed to show you around? I feel like
that's what I was like. Am I going to get whacked after this? And we go into a room. I was like, "Oh, is this where one of the pages of the Dead Sea Scrolls is?" And
yeah.
We go into another room. I was like, "Oh, is this where one of the Knights of the Templars kept?" And he's just kind of like, "Dad, shut up."
You're like, "Oh, is this where you guys fornicate?"
He did take us into the big room where they have all their meetings, and it's just like, it's like what you'd think of a knight's. It's just these like throne chairs all around the room, and then there's 3 like big ones for whoever the bigwigs of the group are. But anyway, he's beloved with that group, and I can see why he's involved in that. They haven't really found a church there, and that's where he's able to be
a part of the community,
and to be community in like reach out to the community. So like he was taking us to Tulsa to go see this big store called Shields, which is basically like Bass Pro Shops on steroids. I mean, this place is wild. You walk in and there's like an acrylic. That's a whole other thing. But anyway, we're on the way over there. He's like, "Hey, we need to take a little roundabout way and stop in this town because we're holding a fundraiser today for this school." So we pop over to the school, and the Masons were doing a fundraiser for the football team.
Nice.
So all the football players are there, and his fellow Masons are coming up, and talking to him, and he's introducing us to and I can tell he's a lot of these guys are my age. Some of them are older, some of them are his age, and they're raising funds for, they made it either the school. Well, I don't remember what the name of the town was. I cannot remember the name of the town, but their mascot was the Haymakers. I was like, that's a great double entendre, because I don't think that's what they meant when they called it. And it's their mascot is clearly like they make hay, but I was like, that's a great name, particularly for the football team.
Yeah,
that's a
fantastic.
great name. But anyway, it was nice. He's thriving, and it's good people there. I will say Oklahoma's much more, at least where we were at, was much more friendly. I would say where we live is somewhere between California and the friendliness there. Like you go generally to San Francisco, Los Angeles, those kind of cities, and you just like make a random comment to a stranger, they're going to give you a look like, is there something wrong with you? It's just, you don't engage with strangers.
Yeah.
In big cities in California. I don't think a lot of big cities. Around here, you can get away with it a little bit more.
Yeah.
We're halfway oaky. But there, I mean, you can just start up a conversation with anybody and talk to them for 5 minutes and walk away, and it's like nothing, like super duper friendly. So, and it was great to see my son, my daughter-in-law, who's had breast cancer, had a double mastectomy. She's a trooper. She's coming through it, and then to see my grandson, who's really cute. So it was nice. It was really nice.
That's awesome.
It's good to see another part of the country. I mean, I've seen most of the country. I think I've been to 45 states, but I hadn't traveled out of state in a while. And it's just nice to get out and see, like, yeah, these people are Americans, but there are big differences between, I mean, one of the big things when you go to like the Midwest, well, I would say Midwest, South, Upper South, even like Virginia, it's just so shocking how they build things. Like you actually have land, not only around the houses, but like the businesses. Not everything's crammed. In California, if you've never been to California, everything is crammed into a strip mall. And it's just building, parking lot. And then there's no land around the strip mall. Then around it is either more businesses, or on the other side, there's houses, or there's a street or something like that. And when you go Midwest and head farther east, there's just, you put in a Whataburger and you got an acre of land, and everything's not like piled on top of each other. It just kind of gives you a little more less claustrophobic feel, and still keeps the character of the geography and everything. So it was a nice trip. It's a good trip. We had no airplane issues, which was nice, because a lot of people, this summertime's always dodgy when you're flying to the Midwest because of weather. And then I think last week before we went, United had canceled a lot of its flights for 2 or 3 days. We flew American there and Southwest back, so we didn't have any issues, but
nice.
So it was good. And while I was gone, what were you up to?
Water polo. I was like, that's my life. My wife even was like, well, I'm glad we got to have our anniversary before you, before I never saw you again. Yeah, so we had our first game tonight.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. That's why I'm here so late. I was like 8 o'clock. I could have been here sooner if it wasn't a game night. But yeah, girls' game ended 7:30, so I had to clean up and get everything and head over here.
Try to keep this to a short episode, maybe no more than 2 hours.
No.
Because you're tired.
No, I'm not like tired like that. Well, and here's the thing is, after games, I'm so amped up, like I can't sleep.
Yeah, I understand that.
Like my body is physically tired because like I'm just like worn, but like I'll be awake till midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, just literally like replaying shit in my head. Oh, that's so sad. My faith is being tested by water polo tonight. Golly. Not my faith, just more like the constructs of faith. I got so irritated tonight. My players played well. They did a good job. I was very proud of them. The things that I asked for them to work on, they worked on. The things that we needed to improve on was not like impossible to come back from, where it's like, oh man, we've got a lot of work to do. It's like, okay, like that's something we can easily work on. Like, all right, so we need to get better at passes from over the top, or we need to get better at this or that. It wasn't like, oh my gosh, we're fucking lost and I don't know how we're going to save this. Or, because sometimes you do see it and you're just like, oh, there's too many problems. I don't know where to start. And so the problems seem very minimal. And so I was like, oh, that's really awesome. They were very minuscule, easy things to work on in order enough to make things different. The problem is, and I knew this about this team has always played dirty, and it has to do with their coach. Their coach was one of my assistant coaches when I was in high school. And so he always talked about how you should play this particular way. And yeah, some of the people that I play with learned some of these tricks and that kind of stuff, but they played us so dirty tonight. They started with shit talking. They started shit talking my players while we were just doing warm-ups. So they're just literally chirping our boys, which I get it. Like, that's it. The hard part is, like, it's not a part of the culture. I get that there are some sports where it is a part of the culture, like hockey, but like, it's not a part of the culture for here. Everybody just minds their own business. We try to be nice to each other, like that kind of stuff. But they were chirping the fuck out of them. And my star player is like, dude, they're chirping me. And I was like, yeah, you played club. They know who you are. Like, this is how it's going to be. Everybody's going to know who you are. You got to not play into it. And he was doing fine. And then they started doing illegal moves and getting away with it because they make it quick, which, again, it happens in water polo all the time. There's a lot of illegal shit that happens. And like, at the end of the day, a ref's not going to call it and they're just going to be like, what do you want me to do? And so what they were doing was they were grabbing his knot on his cap and they were yanking the fuck out of it. And so they were slamming his face down when he would hold the ball. And so they'd yank him. And then he would like tell me about it, and he wouldn't talk to the refs. He'd only talk to me, which I've told them to do. And anytime that they saw him making a sign, he's like, dude, he yanked my freaking thing. They would chirp back and they would yell across at the pool at him. And they'd be like, you mad about it? I know. And I'm just like, dude, are you fucking serious? Like, and the crazy part is, like, the refs are sitting there, it's like, that's what's going. It was so frustrating. So he got fully ejected in the first half because, yeah, he was mad about it. And he played well. Like, he had good defense and stuff. He just was over aggressive on his fouls a couple of times. And that's what got him ejected. Like, he didn't get a brutality or anything. It was just like, if you just would have gone and played the foul, but he was amped up. He was pissed off because he was getting mistreated, and and they were allowing them to do that regularly, and then they were allowing them to chirp us. So yeah, and it would just piss me off because, I mean, again, the hard part is, like, when you're a coach, you say, like, you don't get, like, there's a healthy level of attachment, but I will admit that it's like one of your sons. Like, those boys, like, you sweat and you work with them, and you're teaching them lessons about life, about whatever. And seriously, and for 4 years, and especially this guy, he's been one of my captains for 2 years. I've worked with him for a long time on, growing and maturing, and I've seen him grow. He was one of my students in my class as a sophomore, and I know where his heart is at. And, I do everything I can to teach my guys to play clean, to not play for dirty tricks, that kind of stuff. And then you get met with that. And, like, you're like, we don't stoop to that level. We don't play that way, that kind of shit. But yet, meanwhile, we get manhandled, and my guy is the one that gets fully ejected, and we lose 19-6 because of it, which the score before he got ejected was like 6-4. And I get, and if you're listening to this and you're like, well, Colton, you shouldn't build a team around one player. I don't build a team around one player, but this one player in particular has decided for himself that he wants to be the very best that he could possibly be at water polo. And so he's been going to club, he's been going to workouts at Berkeley, and he did a training with USC over the summer. None of my other players have done that. They only play water polo within the context of the season. And so, yeah, I don't build around that player, but he is our most creative. He is our most talented. He is our hardest worker. And so for him to go out is very frustrating and very difficult for our team we're just not, he opens up a lot of things for us. And so, and to be said about water polo, I mean, I think 100% that kids get involved too much with sports. Like baseball around here is crazy. I don't think that you should put that kind of pressure on kids to have to go and play baseball 24/7 all the time. But water polo is one of those sports where, and especially around here, it's so competitive. You could have your kid in baseball all the time and they could still not make the starting lineup for their high school team. Water polo, that's not the case. You play year round, you're going to be on the starting squad and you're going to learn and you're going to grow a lot and you're going to help your team grow and learn a lot as well. And so I highly encourage it for water polo, but I also completely understand and I love multiple sport athletes. I have a kid who's a sophomore who's a perfect example of that. He's on my varsity team. He definitely had the best game out of anybody tonight. And he's a multiple sport. He plays basketball and he plays baseball. And he only comes out for water polo during the time, but he's also one of those natural talents. It's just he understands how to play. He knows what he needs to do. He looks for opportunities. I was like, he's just a natural talent. And so not everybody's that way. And so you need practice and you need to learn. And again, this kid, so it's kind of a bummer. And it's just frustrating because, it's hard to turn the other cheek when it's happening to your sons. They're out there and they're working hard. And
what'd you tell him when he got rolled?
Well, he was pissed off. We're going to have a conversation tomorrow.
What are you going to tell him?
Well, so he got rolled like pretty much every game last year. He plays with his heart too much. And I like that he plays with his heart. I do. It makes a lot. But he needs to take responsibility for the fact that he was over aggressive yesterday or tonight. And so he needs to take responsibility for that. And he needs to know that, one, we're going to work on trying to get him more help because ultimately he was going to shut down counters. So that's when he had to foul. That's when he fouled over hard on both times. And it was like, all right, we need to figure out a way to get you more help. So that way you don't feel like you have to be the one that shuts down counters.
Does he play whole set?
He does not play whole set. Are you saying, do I play whole set?
No, does he?
No, he doesn't. He can, but he plays whole guard.
Okay, I'm getting us into the weeds, but I'm just curious. I can ask you at another time off the show. Like,
no, you're fine. Yeah, and so we do have to have a conversation.
So he's got a general problem. This isn't. If this was like a one-off, you'd be like, "Don't worry about it. They were idiots. The refs weren't doing anything."
Yeah. Well, but the hard part with him is like, if I say that, then he won't take. It's not that he won't take ownership. He knows what he needs to do. He's a smart kid. But we need to not just sit there and blame the other team and blame refs. I was like, we got to figure out what is it that we did wrong and make adjustments from there. Because ultimately, those are two variables that we can very much not control. We can't control what the refs call, and we can't control what the other team does. I can go over and I can talk to the refs, and I did. And I said, hey, number 20's chirping my guy, and he's tugging on his knot. And that guy stopped because he knew that I went over there and talked to him. But the whole first quarter, he's literally just yanking my guy's knot. And I was pissed. But it was like, all right. So we moved on from that. And then they moved to slugging or whatever. And it's like cheap shots. And my guys were in so much better shape than their team. But it's how it goes. But I was like, they were big boys too. They were all big boys. I was like, my guys looked like they were freshmen compared to these dudes. I was like, damn. So, yeah. So we'll have a conversation about just, hey, man, you got to own up to your part in this. You played too aggressive. And I love that about you. But you got to find a headspace that you don't buy into that. Like you can't go over
bigger picture, not so much in the moment.
Yeah. And I wish I had recorded it so that way I could show him to his face, because his last one, he was like, he didn't give me enough time. So he went and he pressed for a ball under. So for those of you that are not familiar with water polo, if the ball goes under, then it changes possession. So it goes the other way. So
under the water.
underwater. So if a team has the ball and they have their hand on top of the ball, players from the other team will go and press their hand down to push the ball underwater. So he goes and he hooks this guy and presses the ball down. So he's drowning the guy and pushing the ball under, which is not illegal, by the way. That's totally fine. If the other guy, so if you are a player and you have your hand on top of the ball, literally anything can happen to you. You have to let go of the ball in order for a foul to be called. Foul, penalty, whatever. But if you have possession of the ball, they will not blow the whistle for you. And so he goes over, the ball comes out, and they blow the whistle for ball under, but he's still holding the guy down. Like there. And sure, the other guy might be hooking him too. And so they're dragging each other down but no, it was several seconds and then he blows the whistle and kicks him out. And I was like, oh, it was a bummer. But I saw it the second he swam over there. I was like, he's angry. I can't call timeout. They have the ball. And actually I tried calling timeout earlier in the game, but they didn't hear me. They wear earpieces now, the refs do, and they can't hear a damn thing. And so I'm screaming timeout. I screamed timeout for 15 seconds, and they never gave me a timeout. They gave it to the other team when the ball went the other way. Literally right after. We had a man-up situation. I wanted a timeout for them to go set it up because it happened like early on, and I was like, perfect. And I'm screaming for timeout, and I never got it. I was like, fuck. So yeah. But it's beginning of the season, first game of the season, no big. I'm upset. There's things to be upset about. I could probably talk about 2,000 other things about what happened in the water polo game. That's why I'll be up till 1 o'clock in the morning either way. Just sitting there, just like stressing about it, replaying shit, figuring out what we got to do for practice for the next couple of days. We're away at Mission Oak on Monday next week. That's our next game. So they got a new coach this year and he's a good coach. So we'll see if
and a new pool, new shiny pool.
I know. Here's hoping I don't get embarrassed at Mission Oak, dude. That's my biggest fear. I'm just like, oh man. I really hope that Mission Oak is improving and they're doing well, but I really don't want to be like one of the teams that lose to them. Like, I hope that we're improving ahead of them. Like, so that's the situation. That's how I'm doing tonight. I'm not bummed. I think our boys played really well. They did, like I said earlier, I think they did the right things. I do have, which this could be a topic for the show, I guess. I had 2 boys not make grades. Oh, that was the other thing. So I only had 1 sub tonight.
Oh.
Which is brutal. And our JV team had 0 subs.
Oh, my.
Which our JV team has 5 out of the 7 players have never played a game of water polo before. So shout out to our JV team for making it through all 4 quarters tonight against a team that clearly had guys that were on the swim team or whatever. I was like, good for you guys. I was like, and they kept their shape. They looked good. I was like, they had a lot that they could hang their hat on tonight.
Did you talk to them or you just let them?
Yeah, we talked to them. And I even talked to my boys. Again, my boys knew that they did good things tonight. I was like, it didn't go the way we wanted it to go. We obviously have things that we need to work on, but the things that I asked for, they executed well tonight. But JV, same thing. It was like, oh, dude, you guys, again, me and Cohen, my assistant coach, did not sit there and be like, oh shit, we got a lot to do. Like that wasn't the way that we felt at the end of it. And that was a good feeling, especially for the first game of the season against a team that's pretty decent. And so we felt pretty good about that. But I had 2 boys not make grades, which I've never had to deal with before. And so I got 2 boys that are learning about.
How do they not make grades? The school just started.
You have your last semester, or your last quarter counts. So,
all right, that makes sense.
So we had to have conversations this week. And so boys are learning about how the decisions they make affect what happens in the future, which I had to learn that lesson in high school. I was on academic probation.
My son, Jeff.
Yep. So, I mean,
it happened to him. And in fact, the athletic director at the time, well, both athletic directors, but the one that was his athletic director at the time and still is, I went up to him like the week a couple days after they told him he had to sit, and I could tell this guy was like, oh, here he comes. He's going to have a conversation. And I walked up to him and I said, I just want to thank you for making Jeff do what he's got to do. And he was like, what? And I said, what do you think? I was going to come over here and try to convince you otherwise? I said, no, he's got to learn a lesson. This is how you learn a lesson. And we've been telling him for weeks, you got to get your grades up, And I said, the whole point of sports is learning lessons like this. And so it's not just one thing. You got to manage all your things, whether it's a job or whatever. And so, no, I just want to thank you for doing what you're doing. So when he's like, boy, I wish I had more parents. And I said, well, it's not just because we're really good friends, because this is a guy who went on out of town golf trips with. He went with me 4 or 5 times on the NASCAR trip you guys have heard about. So, but if I didn't know the guy really well, I would have gone up to him anyway, just because having been a coach for a long time, I know what kind of pressure parents put on coaches, expecting the coaches are going to put pressure on teachers in order to keep the grades up. And it's just like, no, that's not why we're here.
Yep.
Even if your kid's going to get a scholarship playing water polo to go to Cal Baptist or freaking Cal, no, that's not why we're here. And if that's what you think it is, then, I'm not going to go so far as to say you're setting up your kid for failure, because a lot of kids get to shit and fuck their way through school and they do perfectly fine because they learn how to be bullshitters.
Yeah.
And they know how to find the part of the world that values bullshitters. But you're still hurting your kid at some point by being just like, no, this is what you got to do. Yep. And it's not even because I glorify academics. It's just like, that's what you signed up for. You want to play sports? You got to maintain a C average. It's not hard.
Yep.
So, and I wish more parents would do that. Just be like, back them. No, I'm not doing anything for you.
Yep. Well, and then, so we have the 2 that didn't make grades. And so again, they're learning their lesson this go around. They're out of the game for 9 weeks. And then I had a player today get a 1-day suspension because he decided to hit a pin in the bathroom at school today. Here's the thing. I didn't know what I was going to do. I was pissed. So I get a text. At 3rd, 4th period. So-and-so can't play today. He's got motivation, which is suspension, but on campus. He's not allowed anywhere near the pool today. And I was like, from my athletic director. And I was like, I was so pissed off. I just brought him up to varsity yesterday. And I had another kid. I dropped him down for him. And he has been asking me, he's like, I want to be on varsity. And he's been busting his butt and he's been doing really well. Because originally I was going to put him on JV and he's a junior and I had this other sophomore that was going to be up. And I was like, you got to show me you want it more than him. And he did. And he busted his butt for the last week and a half. And I was like, okay. And the other kid, the sophomore, not busting his butt. So I was like, all right, I'll swap you and him. And I let him know yesterday. I let both of the boys know, hey. And I let the sophomore know, hey, this isn't a permanent position, but I need you to step up in your leadership capabilities. And I need you to step up with your effort and what it is that you're doing in practice. If you want varsity, then that's what you're going to need to do. And I've already had that conversation with him, but now it's a little bit more real if he gets knocked down to JV. And then today I get that text. I'm pissed off. I'm like, all right, I'm going to go find him because he's in motivation. He's on campus. So I'm going to go talk to him during 5th period. And I'm just going to, I don't know. I was mad. I don't know, dude. I feel like I'm a sucker. I go and I get him out 5th period because that's my prep. And I pull him out. I was like, all right, you want to tell me what happened? And I still have no idea what happened. And he tells me exactly. He's like, you want the truth? Honestly, I was a little stressed. Some kid asked me if I wanted to hit. I was like, yeah. So I took a hit. I passed it off to somebody else. He took a hit and then he passed it back to me. And that's when somebody came in. And he's like, I'm sorry. And I'm like, okay, don't let it happen again. Like, I don't know. I was like, I don't know. I was like, I was ready to say something, but I was like, all right, fuck. He seemed genuine, he was like, it's never gonna happen again. I was like, all right, better not. I was like, get back in there. And then the AP that talked to him today came out and was like, hey, you're down one today. And I was like, yeah, I know. And I was like, I went and I talked to him, and he's like, and then the AP said, he seems like a good kid, just made a mistake. And I was like, I'm glad you said that, because he is a good kid, and I think he just made a mistake. He's still going to swim tomorrow. I'm pissed, but at the end of the day, I don't know. Maybe I'm a pushover. But like,
no,
again,
you're not a pushover. I still might have a conversation with him and just say, look, you just have to understand you're playing a sport, and in some respects, that's got more responsibility than the kid who doesn't play any sports or anything. And he doesn't have much to lose to get a 1-day suspension, but you do. So, and I know a lot of parents would probably want to be like, no, you just got to tell him not to take a hit. Yeah, that could be part of it as well. But also, I think, again, use these moments to teach someone, like, you can't just be in the moment and say, I'm stressed and need to do something. Like, I'm fast forward 15 years from now. I can't do this. I can't go tie 3 drinks off on the way home from work because I got a family at home. I need to go home. So it is what it is.
Yeah, man.
I don't know.
Yeah, man. Do you not think I'm stressed here and that I would keep a 12-pack of beer in my refrigerator right next to the second you guys give me one kind of piece of side eye anytime I ask you to do something, just just to knock the edge off, and you fucking. But yeah, so I don't know. I don't think kids need different things. Different kids need different things, and I don't think that an ass chewing is what he needed. Yeah, and I'm not, and I don't know if I'm very good at the ass chewing. But I am very good at letting them know that I'm disappointed in them. And I mean, I'm not even like that remotely disappointed in the kid, because I think it was a Nick vape. Most of the kids don't carry wax ones on them anymore. The Nick is just that much more accessible.
Yeah.
And you're like, ooh, Nick. Like, I don't know. I don't know if anybody else feels that way, but I'm like, oh yeah, totally. Ooh, scary. And so he took a hit, and I'm just like, okay, that was just stupid. Why would you do that? Like, that's just more my response than disappointment. I'm just like, bro, you're just dumb. Why are we doing this? You're a junior in high school. I was like, you know better than this. You know that you should not be doing that on school campus or whatever. And if you do it outside of school campus, you just don't say it out loud and just don't tell me about it and whatever. Well, I'll be like, oh, what? I'll play fucking, what's his name? I'll be holding Caulfield and be like, no, he never, like. So yeah, but that was me today. It's been a roller coaster of emotions today, because it started off with JV was going to have no subs going into today. Then I was able to get our goalie academically eligible. So I had to like go to my athletic director for JV. I had to go and talk to him about getting him academically eligible. And that wasn't like that big of a deal. It's just our athletic director had missed that he went to summer school. So he didn't give him his like credits or whatever for summer school. Cause I was like, his parents were on my ass. They're like, no, he should be good. He should be good. Blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, okay. So I had to like text my AD and be like, hey, I'm showing up to school at 7:30. What time are you going to get here? Cause I got parents on my ass. So I had to go and talk to him. And it all worked out okay. We didn't have to fudge anything for anybody that thinks that, or what we fudged to get him out there. It's all legit. He did earn his credits to where he was able to play. I was like, we've had conversations now for him about, and so now we were like, I texted my assistant coach and I was like, hey, I got great news. You have a goalie, because that was going to be a problem today. And 2, you have 1 sub. And then my fucking dumbass junior decides to go and hit a Nick, and it's like, all right, never mind. You don't get a sub, because I got to pull what's his name up that I just sent down yesterday. So
how did he do?
The sophomore?
Yeah.
He plays really hard for games. That's not a problem. I don't think any of the players, but
he's not ready for the
no. And one of the big issues, and here's the thing. And the boy that is chronically late and misses practice, he's a senior. I have one of those. I have that sophomore who doesn't try, and there was another kid. I think there was a sophomore that doesn't try either. It's like 2 sophomores that don't try, and the senior that doesn't push himself, shows up late, misses practice, doesn't push himself during the swim sets. Those were the ones that couldn't swim. They couldn't fucking last all 4 quarters.
Yeah.
Oh, shocker. When I tell you to swim, swim. I was like, that's like the dumbest part where like they don't understand and they make excuses, right? Like, so they see that I finish my swim sets second to Howell, who is, sorry for name dropping. He's my star player. He's also one of the fastest kids in the valley. I finish my swim sets second to him. And but they make excuses and say, well, you've played for so long. And I was like, nope. Because when I first came out here and I barely got in the pool, it had been 12 years since the last time I had played water polo / got in a pool and did swim sets. And I was like the 5th or 6th person that was finishing my swim sets. But since then, I have pushed myself every single day out here. And that's how I'm beating you. And how all of you have gotten surpassed by my natural talent sophomore. The only reason why he has passed you is because he's pushing himself on his swim sets every single day. It's not because he's better than you, because when he first came out here and you came out here, he was actually behind you. But he's passed you because he swims right next to me and he wants to impress me and he wants to show that he's good enough. And so therefore he swims his ass off every single time. He's not the fastest, he's not the best, but he can damn swim all 4 quarters and not have a problem.
Yeah, that's a shame. I was always good at that. Just I wasn't the fastest, but I was one of. I wasn't the most talented, but I was never going to be the one who couldn't finish a run or something. And I always thought as a layperson, when Jeff was playing water polo, that was the easiest way to get really good at water polo was just swim faster and longer than the other team.
Yep.
Like I could have half your talent, but we beat the other team every time to the ball, and we get back really quick, and we get easy breakaways and 1 out of 5 times is all we need. We can score 4 or 5 goals out of that. And we can make a mediocre team into a pretty good one or a pretty good one into a really good one if we just swim the shit out of the other team.
Well, and our team, and even with those 3, our team was in better shape than the other team tonight. So,
well, that's good. I think it's a credit to you being in the pool because even though they're not doing what you want them to do, they're probably better than they would have been without you out there busting your butt with them. So,
yep. So yeah, that has been water polo talk. Well, also coaching talk. Like I said, I could probably go on for another 5 hours on it. Like there's a lot. It's tough. I was like, maybe we shouldn't do podcasts after games just because I have so much to decompress, so much stuff going on through my brain afterwards. That's regarding to that. But yeah,
I did ask you if you want to do it on Saturday. But I wasn't even thinking that your season had started. I just knew school had started, so I'm like, he probably wants to do Saturday. So,
well, the hard part about Saturday is I'm not home enough right now. So Audrey wants me home, but Tuesday night she's just like, yeah, I mean the kids are both already in bed.
Yeah,
so
that's fair enough.
She's just like, sure, go for it. And I was like, yeah, I could probably make it work. And I can make it work. I'm not having a problem, but that's why we're having distracted conversation right now. It's because I'm just like processing. Do we even have a topic for tonight? Because I have a topic. I don't know if it's like a huge topic. You might think so.
I have topics.
Oh, okay, cool.
I mean, start, but
I don't have a trivia question tonight. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's fine. First beer of the night.
Oh yeah, first beer, birthday beer.
First beer and a half for me since I dumped half my first one is the Stone Original IPA. It turns 28 this week. 28 years.
Birthday beer. Happy birthday, Stone
first
IPA.
Started. I don't know. I didn't look. I got an email from him, so that's how I knew. Yeah, it started in 1997. I assume this was their first beer as well. They'd probably been around before then, but this was the week. The Stone IPA. No, I guess probably Arrogant Bastard preceded that.
Oh, yeah, maybe there you go.
Which I love Arrogant Bastard, but damn, this is so good.
Oh, yeah.
Every time we complain about a piney good West Coast IPA. I forget about this. This and Racer 5 still hold.
This one won when we did our blind taste test. This was my number one. Was the Stone IPA.
It's so good.
Sculpin
It's
took
actually
2,
rather.
Racer took 3rd for me. That's how it went.
After doing our class, it's actually kind of nice and balanced. It's hoppy, but it has a nice maltiness to it
100%.
as well.
Yeah.
It's not just a really hoppy beer, but I mean, if you're into a really hoppy West Coast IPA, you get that. But it also, you can see it in the color. It's a little darker than some IPAs, but then you taste it on the back end of it. Just a really nice. It's not overly.
Yeah.
Some IPAs are malty and it's too much, but this has got the perfect balance of just.
This is
nice
just what
malt.
I want to drink every week. I just want this every week.
It's so fantastic, and it comes in at.
And it sucks because originally everybody was trying to replicate this.
Yeah.
And so everybody was trying their best to make something that was just like this. And yet now everybody's making all this fuck all. And I'm just like, dude, can we just go back to like that flavor? Because, like you go to, maybe I haven't had enough, like red ales or something. But if you go and order a red ale, you're getting the same damn profile every single time. You're like, oh, this is nice hearty malt.
Yeah, I've never had a red ale that was like, well, that's different. I haven't had that before.
Right? Oh my gosh, but fucking IPAs are like, golly.
I think it's because I don't know why they're doing it, but certainly the hops that people are buying has changed.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, I don't know if it's because it's cheaper or just people prefer the flavor. I mean, those New Zealand hops have taken over, and we've been very clear about our mixed feeling on it. Yeah, I think it's cheap. In fact, I even noticed they just had one of the big, like, major beer festivals is within the last couple of weeks.
Oh yeah.
And I've been seeing articles posted on it. This is what won the IPA, all the IPAs that won. Here's what won all the lager pilsners and stuff like that. They now have a New Zealand style IPA. There's even a New England style pilsner and lager category at these things. I'm like,
wow.
Oh, that's crazy.
Wow.
This one has, I just saw it. This is brewed with, where was that? It's right there.
Simcoe?
Magnum.
Oh, Magnum.
Chinook, Centennial, Azaka, Calypso, Ella, and Vic Secret hops. I don't know most of those other than Chinook and Centennial, and I swear when we want to just make something by our own recipe, those are two for sure we should be buying in a bag is Chinook and Centennial, because those seem to have the flavor profiles that we enjoy. Flavor notes, it says, is lemon peel, tropical, and dank. I don't really pick dank.
Delicious.
Let me think about that. Definitely lemon peel.
Delicious, great beer. Like I said, when we did the blind taste test, I ranked it as the best IPA that we taste tested, and so therefore I stand by what I had done. I love the original San Diego IPA flavor, because Sculpin also took my number 2 spot. So
yep.
And I feel like Sculpin and Stone's IPA are fairly similar. I think Sculpin has a fuller body in its flavor, so it's a bit thicker. I think that this one's crisper and lighter, but it still has that good bitterness that goes with it. So, yep.
Good stuff.
Oh, topic?
I had a couple things.
Well, I got one. If you want to,
I don't know. Do this real quick. It's not quite a clean up on aisle 5. I just want to follow up. We mentioned one funny anecdote before we get rolling. My buddies, high school buddies, I got 6 guys I went to high school with. I've mentioned them before on the show. And apparently 2 of you are listening, as I'm about to tell you, because one of my friends was going down to Del Mar with his wife to go to the racetrack over the weekend. And so,
hell yeah.
And they dressed up like they were going to, they dressed up like they were going to Churchill Downs. It was
hell
great.
Yeah.
And then that started all the love San Diego, love San Diego, love San Diego, love San Diego. And I was sitting at the airport in Dallas. We just landed from Tulsa. And so I look at my phone. I got 20 texts from these guys. I'm looking at it and I'm like, all right, I'm going to chime in. I said, I love San Diego. I did 20 breweries in 36 hours in San Diego. And the younger brother of my friend who's going to Del Mar, who's part of our high school group. He's only a year. He was a grade younger. So Randy's basically part of the group. Randy texts back, "That's not true. There's no way that happened." And I just like, well, I don't know how I'm going to prove it to you on a text, but it happened. And so, but I got distracted because we're at the airport, and then I looked.
That's when you should have chimed in. I did it at 52 years of age, actually. Like, this ain't like a 20-year-old.
Well, before I even had a chance to chime in, two of my buddies chimed in and said he did do it. And then another one of them, they both said he did do it. And one of them then followed up with he did do it and it's on a podcast and it's discussed on a podcast. I'm like, I didn't even know you guys were listening to the show. And one of them I had actually seen was one that I'd seen a couple weeks ago that I talked about on the show, and he'd never mentioned it, which I'm glad. I mean, the podcast comes up in our group friends. I try not to bring it up. I let other people bring it up, like, because they liked something we discussed and they want to have a conversation about it, which is usually what happens. Like Andy likes something we were talking about or has a question about what we were talking about, and then it leads to a discussion at the brewery. But I never want to be the dude of, well, I have a podcast. So, but I was like, damn it, I didn't even know these guys were listening. So he still was incredulous, and I was like, I have the list right here. So then I sent him the list of all the breweries we hit, and it was within like a minute and a half of him saying, I don't believe you, basically. And I'm like, and it was, I just copied and pasted the list from our Google page.
Right.
So it included the URL. So it was like, I didn't have time to just type this up in a minute and a half. Like, here's the list. So, and then one of my buddies chimed in and said, no, Tim drinks beer like Arnold Schwarzenegger lifts weights
cigars.
And stuff like that. I was like, the other was like, yeah, if anybody knows how to drink, it's Tim. And I'm like, yep. Yeah, so, but yeah, I wanted to be like, yeah, we didn't have a conversation about this because I needed to then tell them there's more to the story even than this. There was dudes half my age with me, and I got Chinese water tortured the first night. It still was a true.
Great stories out of it. Colton was late to every damn conversation.
And then I was thinking, man, I do want to do a trip like that again. Not that intense.
No, not that intense.
I want to hit
maybe still do all 20
just that we didn't. I want to hit North Point and sit there for a while and
yeah. I think it just needs to be not just like a 36-hour, flyby. It needs to be like,
which I mean, that we didn't even, the trip wasn't, well, how long we planned that trip? Like, I mean, you talked about it for about a year and a half, and then we planned it for like 3 or 4 months, maybe 6.
Yeah.
The marathon thing didn't happen until like very late at the end, where we're like,
yeah, we're just like,
let's just cram them all in. Let's try to see how many we can. And then it was on the way down that I came up with the San Diego Beer Marathon.
Yeah.
Or it might even halfway through doing it, because I was like doing the math in my head.
We
I was like, oh, this is, we're basically doing like a marathon in terms of the number we're going to hit. And
the trip actually turned out, and the reason why Tim ended up getting Chinese water tortured was because, no offense to our 2 friends that joined us, but they're not. Eric said yes, but then never chimed in ever again. And so it was like, I don't know if Eric's actually going, and Eric gets gone for the summer.
Yeah.
And it was like, I don't know if he's going. And Nolan said yes, but Nolan was in Texas, and Nolan was just like, didn't want to miss out on anything. And so sometimes he says yes, but then we have last minute cancellation for Nolan. And so, or we thought that was what was going to happen. So it was like, all right, we're just going to make this reservation for 2 for me and you, because you and I are definitely going. So we go, and Eric and Nolan join us, which was great. We don't have any problems with them joining, but it meant that Tim had to sleep on the floor. Eric slept on the floor with no blanket.
Oh, Eric really slept. I mean, I had Chinese water torture the first night, but he really slept on the floor. Like,
I don't even remember falling asleep the first night. So,
I remember Nolan falling asleep right away. But unbeknownst to us, Nolan was catching strep throat while he was on the trip. He had full-on strep throat by Sunday morning.
He's the worst. And then on top of that, he had the smelliest boots of all time.
Oh yeah, that was the crime. That was the crime. So
good times.
So anyway,
man.
shout out John and Greg for listening and not ever telling me. So if I've ever said anything untowards, I don't apologize because we've known each other forever and fuck off.
That's right.
Okay, last episode we were talking about, as we've been talking about quite a bit, and I don't apologize for it. If you're tired of the topic, then just skip the episodes where we talk about it, because we're going to probably talk about it a little bit more tonight. But we talked about Israel and where things were going in Gaza and how popular opinions turned against Israel and et cetera, et cetera. And part of that conversation, I brought up dropping the atomic bomb on Nagasaki and Hiroshima. And I wanted to just revisit that real quick. One, because friend of the show, Chris, texted me and said he really liked what we'd said and verified what I'd said about Kyoto being taken off the list. But also, it is the anniversary of us dropping the bomb. It's been 80 years?
Yep, 80 years.
It's 80 years. So I did want to just spend like 5 minutes. It doesn't need like a long conversation between you and I. So I just wanted to fill in for those of you who don't know a lot about, just what everyone pretty much knows, the cursory stuff about it. Just fill in a little more information. And part of me is doing this because, like on a lot of things that you and I have talked about on the show, this is something I've changed my mind on. As of, I don't know, it was probably before COVID.
Yeah.
I got into, I wouldn't say a heated, but it was a spirited debate between our friend Robert and Roke at a cigar club, where they were offering up the position that we didn't need to drop the atomic bombs. And I was giving the position that we did because, it was projected we were going to lose 1 million men if we invaded, and how bad Iwo Jima and Okinawa battles had been, and how many Marines we'd lost there, and trying to invade the mainland was kooky talk. And I've since come to, and they were arguing, no, it was basically a political decision. It was done in order to show the world and the Soviets that we've beat everybody to the bomb and don't bother messing with us when this war is over. And I'd heard that argument before, but I wasn't going to buy it. And since then, I've done more reading on it, and I've come to the conclusion I was wrong and they were right. So I want to kind of go through a little bit, again, just a quick, I hope this is informative for you if you don't know a lot about us dropping the bomb. So I'm going to first deal with how the cities were picked, which you, I think, correctly pointed out is just ghoulish one way or another. So whether or not a Christian city was picked or not is kind of immaterial. Although it is, again, it is just odd. And then the fact that the Catholic Church was the site used to cite the bomb in when the bomber was coming in, they used the Catholic Church as the landmark to cite the bomb. So it's just strange. So between April and June 45, U.S. military's leaders generated a long list of Japanese cities as possible targets. They had some criteria. First, the cities need to be large. They need to be wider than 3 miles with sizable populations. They need to have high strategic value, meaning they had to have a military installation of some kind. And third, they needed to have not been bombed by the ongoing firebombing campaigns, which had begun in March of 45. And just as a reminder, those firebombing campaigns, one alone in Tokyo one night, killed more than we did with the atomic bomb. So even as horrific as the atomic bombs were, and I think they were a big mistake in hindsight, the firebombing was just as bad, if not worse. So there was only a few cities that met that qualification. It was Kyoto, Hiroshima, Kokura, and Nagata. By the end of May of 45, the finalists were Kyoto and Hiroshima being the primary 2 targets. I mentioned last week that Kyoto was one of them, and that it had been taken off the list. And I had mentioned that somebody in the government had a romantic idea of a honeymoon. He'd honeymooned there and wanted it off the list. I want to be specific as to who it was because I couldn't remember who it was. It was U.S. Secretary of War Harry Stimson who wanted Kyoto removed. It is arguably a bit of a, it's not untrue, but it's a bit of a, it's not quite sure. It's not for sure that it was because he honeymooned that he wanted it taken off the list. What we absolutely do know is he wanted it off the list because it was too culturally important to the Japanese. And so he felt like that was going to be too much.
Well, I mean, there's still today talks about how we should have been a little bit more culturally sensitive when it came to Germany.
So I think it's one of those instances where it's probably both things are correct. I think there's some writings about him waxing on romantically about his time he spent in Kyoto on his honeymoon. And so I think probably both things are correct. Was he thought it was too much. It was too much of a cultural and not as much of a military hub. And so they took it off the list. So the final list ended up being, it was not either one of those. It was, sorry. So Kokuro ended up on the final list. It was Kokuro and Hiroshima as on the final list. When on August 10th, they had an extended cloudy forecast. So they moved the bombing up to bomb Kokuro to the day earlier to August 9th. And they loaded the bomb onto the plane and flew the B-29 to Kokuro. But when they got there, it was already socked in with clouds. So at that point, then they flew to the next target, which ended up being Nagasaki. So that's how Nagasaki, and Hiroshima was always on the list, but that's how Nagasaki ended up at the last second, ended up being on the list. In addition, I think certainly I kind of believe this probably for most of my adulthood, and then I was aware of the conversations about the political reasons for dropping the bomb, and then I still felt that it was there was a military reason for dropping it, and that was the main reason, was the Japanese weren't going to surrender, and et cetera, et cetera. If that's the narrative you've been told, I think it's interesting to know that militarily it was mostly opposed by the upper brass of the U.S. military. And I'm going to give you specific names and in some cases some quotes. So contrary to conventional opinion, many leaders at the time, including 6 out of the 7 5-star officers, being generals or admirals, criticized the use of the atomic bomb. Dwight Eisenhower himself, Supreme Allied Commander, 5-star general, future President of the United States, when he was told by Stimson that they're going to drop it, he said, he was quoted as saying, "I was against it on 2 counts. First, the Japanese were ready to surrender, and it wasn't necessary to hit them with that awful thing. And second, I hated to see our country be the first to use such a weapon." General Douglas MacArthur, no shrinking violet, was against it. Chester Nimitz, who was the fleet admiral of the U.S. Navy and the commander-in-chief in the U.S. Pacific, was also against it. White House Chief of Staff, Chairman of the Joint Chiefs, William Leahy, was against it. He wrote in his 1950 memoir that the use of this barbarous weapon at Hiroshima and Nagasaki was of no material use against Japan. The Japanese were already defeated and ready to surrender. So again, echoing what Eisenhower was saying. And then he goes on to say, "In being the first to use it, we adopted an ethical standard common to the barbarians of the Dark Ages. I was taught not to make war in that fashion, and wars cannot be won by destroying women and children." And then Admiral William Bull Halsey, also one of our top commanders in the Pacific. He was the commander of the U.S. Third Fleet, which participated in the offensive against most of the Japanese home islands. And I think he was commander at Midway. He was a commander at Midway, I think, of one of the carriers, if I remember right. He stated in 1946 that the first atomic bomb was unnecessary. It was an unnecessary experiment, and that the Japanese, he noted, had put out a lot of peace feelers through Russia long before the bomb was used. So Just a little bit of context on an anniversary of something. I spent most of my life, like a lot of things, just believing this is what we had to do. War is hell, and I still subscribe to that. But even then, there are just certain things, and I think now where I'm at in my life, I think it was a huge mistake. Yes, once the Oppenheimer genie was out of the bottle, someone was bound to use it, but that doesn't mean it had to be us. So.
I think you cleaned that up nicely. I don't think there's anything that needs to be said.
Like I said, didn't need.
I concur with your facts. Do you want me to push back on that?
What else? I just want to. We went really hard against Israel last week. I don't apologize for that in any way. We've been pretty hard on them for a while, but I think it needs to be said just so we're not misunderstood in any way. The Palestinians, we spoke last week about what wrath does to a person and to a people.
Yeah.
And I just want to take this moment to me personally, and I assume Colton's going to agree. The Palestinians have done this already to themselves, right, and they're their own worst enemy.
Yeah.
And so if you at all hear what we've been saying since October 7th as the Palestinians are victims, I think we've tried to go out of our way to make sure we're not saying that. I mean, I think it'd be overstated that they all support Hamas, but I also think that there is a profound enough percentage within the Palestinian population that is behaving in every way that the Israeli population is behaving right now. And so, they're reaping what they're sowing every bit as what you and I have been saying Israel has reaped on itself. And so
yeah.
I think the only way out of this is both sides beat the stuffing out of each other to where a generation on both sides can say, can we end this?
Yeah.
And then even then, as you and I, we've mentioned Attack on Titan, that doesn't mean that 4 generations from now, this bullshit doesn't start up again all over again.
Yep.
But at the very least, I think the hope is out of this horror that both sides are inflicting on each other.
Well, and again, also remember that when it comes to Attack on Titan, and it is the most popular theme in Japanese anime, and you just brought up the atomic bombs. Yeah. The most talked about theme is the cycle of hatred.
Yeah.
It's in their culture. It's embedded in a lot of their pop culture about how do we break the cycle of hatred. And some talk about it in a good way, that you have heroes that are able to overcome it. And some where it's like Attack on Titan, where it's like, I'm not trying to overcome it. I'm just trying to do what's best for my friends.
Yeah, and
I don't think anybody blames, and if we put that into real context in today's world, I don't think anybody blames anybody for having that kind of mindset. But we got to be better.
We need to expect better, and I think what you and I are both animated by.
Well, I don't even know if we should expect better, because again, that's how the world operates. But we as Christians need to be better. And I know that it's against cultural and it's against what is innate in us. I think it's against human nature, but we have to be better.
Yeah, expect's the wrong word.
Well, I just don't expect people that don't believe to subscribe to that, because at the end of the day.
And that's where I think when I say expect,
no, yeah,
I'm calling, which is what a lot of the last couple of episodes when we've talked about this is directed at fellow Christians who are sticking their nose in this, to where even like over the weekend, Mark Levin, who's this right-wing Jewish commentator who I've often liked because he's constitutionalist, but he's speaking in front of a group of Christians, and he's literally saying this is a war against 7th century barbarians. They need to be destroyed. And, they're showing happy, nicely coiffed, good-looking Christian people just smiling and clapping along and going at this. I'm just thinking, this is just justifying hatred. That's all it is. It's not really anyway. I don't want this whole franchise to be just consumed by one topic. But yeah, again, I'm not picking where I have picked specifically, and Colton has chimed in on Israel. It's because we've been sold this bullshit that there's some special country and blah, 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 and they're not.
Yeah, I think the United States.
And it's not fair frankly, it's not fair to judge them that way. And where Israelis or Jews in America want to hold them to that standard, that's their problem. And you call them out for that idiocy.
Yeah, and I don't like the spiral. So it's gone on now for 2 years, and so lots of radical, crazy things have come out in these last 2 years, and solutions and things in the like. And so as we continue to spiral down and lose our humanity towards Gaza, that concerns me. And so therefore, that's why it becomes a reoccurring topic. And same way when it comes to the Palestinians, again, what Tim was trying to reinforce, we don't side with them either. We don't side with people that are out for blood, for people that believe that territories make them who they are. And you could sit there and say, well, that's nice coming from a place of luxury in the United States. But I feel like Tim and I have been very clear that ultimately at the end of the day, people just want trains to run on time.
Yeah.
We're very grateful for the United States. We're very grateful for the opportunities that we have here. But ultimately, at the end of the day, I don't serve the masters of this, the masters on this earth. I serve the one up.
I think
I can do that in any setting.
Sure. I think this issue is very similar to our founding and our expansion of the West. I don't hold some romantic view of manifest destiny, and it was destined for white people to conquer and take over this continent and make it into some grand thing. I do think what we did to the American Indians in a lot of ways was terrible, but I don't sit back and then just look at them as victims either and justify the way what American Indians did as well in their response to what white people were doing. I mean, there was a lot of horrific stuff and a lot of bad things about Indian culture, which was by Christian standards pretty repugnant. So I don't hold a romantic view of either one. By the same token, I don't look at Indians fighting Americans when we're trying to take over their land and be like, oh, they're terrible people. It's like, no, it's a pretty natural response for one group to say like, hang on, this is my land. You're trying to take it. And now you're holding me to be the bad guy because I'm trying to kill you. So again, it's just like, no, you're both terrible and doing base sinful things. And so this is the kind of hell people get thrown into when we descend into that. Greed, avarice, thievery, all the, most of the 7 deadly sins are all wrapped up into there. So what do you expect? Yes, you're going to experience hell on earth, and both sides send themselves into that spiral. So, all right, we can talk about the Greg Boyd podcast.
Oh yeah.
Or we could save that for another episode.
I think that's fine.
Or we could do what you want to talk about.
Well, I don't even know if I want to talk. Well, I do want to talk about it. I don't know what your opinion. Well, you might have an opinion. You might have way more information on this than I do. I just have my say on it. I don't think 2 wrongs make a right. And so for any of you that are watching, and I know that we have viewers that are outside of the state of California. And so first off, I do want to say that I don't appreciate Texas gerrymandering politically. And by the way, Texas has always done that. That's nothing new. Also, California has done it for forever, and that's nothing new. And so for those of you that are listening and you know that we're based in California, I don't stand with what Gavin Newsom's doing. I don't stand with what Texas did either. I don't think that 2 wrongs make a right. I don't think that that's how you should do politics. Yes, I think that Texas was irresponsible with what it is that they're doing. I think that comes from Tim's putting his headphones down. He's oh, okay. Okay. I was like, I said he didn't call you. I actually, believe it or not, for anybody that's listening to this, I have taken more poli-sci classes than I have taken any other class in college. I like government, actually. I took comparative politics. I took the required like GE politics. I took California politics. I've actually taken 3 California politics classes, all with different professors. Not the same class. They were all different types. And so I know a lot about California government, actually. Much more than the average Joe. I will say this about California government. Whoever has ownership of the House and California government, therefore, gets to make the decisions. And there are no checks and balances, which is funny because if you're an American, you're like, oh, yeah, this is how fair, elections run. You need to have checks and balances, blah, blah, blah. And that's how we view things at the federal level. But in California, nope. They literally have no checks. And actually, the checks that exist in California are the people only. So there are petitions that you are able to sign, and you are able to, and the people therefore have to make it an issue. But you have to have a certain percentage of the population or enough to return anything. And so if people were upset by Gavin Newsom's announcement to gerrymander to get himself stuff, or not himself, well, it will eventually be himself, more votes, more electoral votes, which is so funny. Which, here's the thing about the gerrymandering thing that's a little annoying. Texas still divides their state, correct? So they give based off of, they don't go full over, correct? Or did they change that recently? So if you win the state of Texas, you don't get all of them, correct? Or are they that way?
No, every state's done the same way. So
not anymore. No, wait. There's still a couple of holdouts.
No. When the census is done, then there's a reallocation of districts.
Right. No, but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about when it comes to the electoral college and the districts. There are some states that it's not winner takes all. If you win Pennsylvania, you get
Texas is still a classic, not winner takes all.
Right, which actually I appreciate because I think that's more representative of.
Sure, I don't
like the whole winner takes all thing.
Particularly a big state like any big state, like geographically, like Texas and California, should be doing it representative, because if you don't, then you're just as Republican as Texas is, it's very similar to California, where California, if you don't live in California, basically everywhere within, 50 miles of the coast is very, very, just broadly, generally speaking, it widens out from certain parts, but 50 miles to the coast is all very, very blue, and most of from out there tends to be purple, if not very red. Texas isn't really any different. The Dallas area is Democrat. The Houston area is Democrat.
Not Austin, though. No.
Austin's Democrat. I think San Antonio is mixed, but so it's similar where the big cities are where Democrats are, and then the farther out you go from cities like Dallas, because Dallas is like Los Angeles, it's this massive metroplex that almost goes up to the Oklahoma border now, which is 2 hours north. But so when you have that kind of setup, you need to have it representative. So you're minimizing this rural, suburban, urban divide and not making it where people feel like everything's being imposed by one group of people. So, but California, because we're very much a one-party state, and the only people who stop the legislature here is the governor or a court. And look,
again, the people are technically able to do it, but it never happens.
Yeah, our state's way out of whack. Where we even have the state, our state's so out of whack that, and this is picking on the Democrats, but this is going where I think where you want this discussion to go. I think if you're a Republican in California, you're listening to this, you're like, yeah, the Democrats are crazy. The Republican Party is proving itself to be no better. So in California, when we have amendments, propositions that can get written, where people can vote on them, and the Democrats have intentionally been caught writing propositions that sound the opposite of what they're supposed to do, and a court has said no, it's perfectly fine, and which is just absolutely kooky talk.
Yeah,
And
California
so, but I'm sorry, if the at this point, if the Republicans took over, they would engage in the same bullshit. So
100%.
the only thing that keeps our state from going completely crazy is, as much as I hate to say it, is Gavin Newsom, because I think the man is either a psychopath or a sociopath. But he has, on numerous occasions in the last 2 years, been like, "No, that's too far," and vetoed things from the legislature. And then Jerry Brown did quite a lot of that. Jerry Brown was actually almost a centrist and a very reasonable person before, and his nickname was Moonbeam because he was like a classic hippie 60s radical lefty, but by today's standards he was like, it's way too liberal for me. But there was a lot of stuff he did, like on spending. It was like, no, we can't spend that kind of money, that's crazy.
Yeah.
And was very good for the schools. So anyway, gerrymandering is as old as the Republic. I can say that because it's named after a politician whose name escapes me, who was a politician either before or around the founding of the Republic.
Right.
It has been dealt with numerous times in the courts, including the Supreme Court. It is basically...
And when he talks about the Republic, he's talking about Plato's Republic.
Yeah.
Gerry is actually Latin.
It dates back to Socrates.
Yeah,
it's gerrymandering.
Yeah,
in
exactly.
The French. Courts have basically said you're allowed to do it without getting crazy, and so they'll step in when states get and you'll see some of these maps where they create a district and it's ridiculously looking, which is what Texas is kind of getting itself into trouble. The irony of the whole Texas thing is the Democrats in Texas fled to Illinois, and Illinois has long been known to have like the worst gerrymandering in the country. So that was a bit of a bad look. But yeah, so now Newsom's like, all right, well, if two can play that game, which Newsom has to do because it's expected in 5 years when we do the next census, California's going to lose a bunch. Well, not a bunch, probably 3 or 4 seats because of population decrease. So I don't like gerrymandering either. I think, fortunately, where we live, we don't have it.
The Hanford's going to lose it.
Hanford's got a little. I mean, there's little parts where, like, south, there's areas where you're like, what? They vote in Bakersfield? Like, that doesn't make sense. And then north.
That's what I'm saying. Hanford's going to lose a seat.
Yeah.
So they're gonna make more for San Francisco to win the spot, which I don't know. It's just frustrating. I don't like gerrymandering as somebody who sees it on a regular basis for I see it happen on a minute scale where maybe not a lot of people see it, but gerrymandering happens for school districts.
Do we need to explain gerrymandering? I think we probably need to explain what we're talking about.
Yeah, if you don't know what gerrymandering is, it's carving out spots or districts or whatever that create up the boundaries of where you're able to vote and what represents your vote.
Yeah, it usually applies to House of Representatives.
But it applies to Senate seats, House of Reps.
Well, state Senate seats.
Yeah, state Senate seats, electoral, and even, an electoral, therefore presidential.
But it usually happens at the House level, and it's usually what it is where the court most often intervenes is when it is done blatantly for racial purposes.
Well,
so if you create a sliver where you're trying to take a black population and keep it in a black population, they will go after that. However, it still happens all the time.
Well, yeah, and so I bring up education as part of this because what's important to know is I believe it's in Lodi. What's the town that's just right above Lodi, just north of Lodi?
Elk Grove?
Yeah, south maybe it's Elk Grove. Anyways, they're a united school district, but the school district decided to literally carve out all of it's crazy. You can actually like look up their map. I don't remember the name of this high school or whatever, but where all their kids go. And it's fucking insane. You have kids that are literally living right across the street that are not able to go to that school.
Cool, what? Because they're low income.
Yeah, because there's a
Yeah, see,
because
that's
they're
kinda,
a part of
that's
a
kinda stuff that's
track
ridiculous.
neighborhood or whatever and that kind of stuff. And so I see it on a minor scale, and that happens all over the place, and that goes unchecked regularly.
So that's the worst kind, though.
That is the worst kind, and I'm not saying that that's what's existing, but I'm saying that. So you have,
And we even have that here in our town, Tulare, where they've got funky borders where they redistricted when Jeff was. He was a freshman. They redistrict, so it was going to take effect between his sophomore and junior year. I think of what it was. I think it was between freshman.
Well, and they made the excuse,
and so we lived a mile from Union, which is the oldest high school in town, and in the middle of town. We lived a mile from there, and 2 miles from Western.
Yep.
And then, I mean, no, that was when my daughter was in. She was supposed to go to Western, but we had to fudge
Yeah, but you stood and you looked out over Cherry Street and you could see fucking Union down the street. But yet all those houses right around Cherry Avenue and TFBC, those are all that was all Western District when I was growing up. So
okay, so that's what it was.
There,
that's what it was. When Jeff first 2 years, it was Western.
Yeah.
And it was that way when Christina, his older sister, was there. We fudged her address because it was closer, and my wife and all of her siblings had gone to Union, which I was like, who gives a two shits whether or not everyone went to Union?
I got no loyalties there.
But so we put, I think, her parents on the address, so Christina went there. So first 2 years, Jeff's going to Western. Then they changed it.
Yep.
For us, it was convenient. So Jeff now goes to Union. However, and we didn't fudge an address. We actually put in a transfer request, and they approved it. He stayed at Western because at this point, he's 2 years into high school. I'm like, what kid in his right mind wants to switch 2 years into high school? I mean, high school is hard enough.
He also went to Cherry, and
they granted it.
Most of his friends went to Western.
2 miles. So we were our house was half a mile. Let's say a mile northeast of Union High School. If you're playing along at home, 3 miles away, those kids are also having to go to Western High School, which is 6 miles away instead of 3 miles away. And it all comes down in our town to race and socioeconomic demographics and some other things. And when I will say in our town, when it's explained, you're like, all right, well, it's not crazy. They're trying to keep things balanced. And it's also a population balance.
It's also who's on the board.
Well, that's true. That's always the thing.
Yeah, no, they actually gerrymandered. So every person on the board, when they made those, had either students or were graduates of Tulare Western. Either they had kids that were at Western, or they themselves were graduates of Tulare Western. And so and I'm not saying that there's
I didn't know that.
I'm not saying there's a scheme. I'm not saying there's anything like that. I'm just saying that they made some really interesting boundaries that were wild. And to which nowadays, like, nobody cares this late. Like, nobody cares anymore. Like, nobody really remembers it that much. I was like, I'm sure some teachers do. But what's hard is that all the Mole K kids now go to Tulare Union, which you're just like, okay.
Yeah.
Again, it's again that question of, all right, you're 2 miles away from that school, but meanwhile you got to drive. You got to get your parents to drive, and now you got to hop on a bus where before you could have just walked to school. And then the crazy part, the hard part was Tulare Western carved out Del Lago for themselves. So there was like, all right, you guys are going to get the Tulare Union. You're going to get the south side of the west side. And then we're going to get the north we're gonna get the northwesternmost part of Tulare, or the northeasternmost part of Tulare.
Right. Which, if you know, most of you know,
Which,
Michigan,
if I'm being honest with you,
that was the new, at the time it was done, it was the new suburban planned development of town.
I was like, why the fuck isn't it going to Mission Oak? If we're gonna
Yeah,
make an
yeah,
argument
exactly.
for any of them, like, I was like, how is it not? But Mission Oak's always been the stepchild, so
Yep.
they always get whatever.
They always get the poor kids from South. They always get the poor kids from
Pixley and
South of
Tipton.
town. Yeah.
And so they're like, oh no. And then they like try to make, and so they actually like showed it, and they showed that Western was going to be overinflated in their portables, all this like stuff. And then Tulare Union was going to be it was going to be under. And it
so
was
the
like,
map, instead of looking, if you look at Tulare as being like a square or circle, so rather than being in like thirds, nice, because there's, again, if you're not from Tulare, Western is on the west part of town.
Yep.
Union, which is the original
Central.
high school, is in the middle of town, basically, and Mission Oak is the new school, is on the east side of town.
Yeah, southeast.
So you would think like, all right, we'll just divide this in thirds, try to balance it out so everyone's got maybe not the equal number, but a number of kids who can fit the capacity of each
exactly.
school.
And Union is landlocked.
Western
is now landlocked.
Right.
Mission Oak is not.
No,
Mission Oak is the largest
what you
campus.
got were boundaries that look more like a yin and yang.
Yeah, it was like and that was the part where everybody was pushing back. It was like, what the fuck is this? And you had Western teachers that were like, well, I drive from, and it's not about how far you have to drive. And they're like, well,
no, the drive's not a big deal.
I'm able to get to work in 15 minutes. And it was like, but for a family that's not able to take all their kids to all the fucking places, you're gonna send buses all the way out there to then drive all the way to Western. It was like, so dumb.
Kids who could have walked to school were having to get rides somewhere.
Yeah, it was just, and that's how it was the time before, because again, this was kind of the whole thought process where it was, again, Union or Western got to try to even out their demographics, which I get it, because I get it. But so they cut out your section where you lived in to even out the demographics, because you were in a very nice neighborhood, but that neighborhood is predominantly white and Asian.
Yeah.
And so they would cut out this spot. But meanwhile, you're like, if I take 10 steps from my house, I can see Tulare Union.
Yeah.
You're like, but meanwhile, I got to take my kid over to fucking Western, and so you're like, I can see the tennis courts from my house. So yeah, anything north of Cross.
Yeah, that's right. I could see that. Yeah, I was right the first time when I said it was half a mile, not a mile. Yeah, it was half a mile away.
Well, and here was also
the front of the school.
And that was back in the days. And that was back in the days when what's the Garden?
Yeah,
was the ideal elementary school in town. I'm not counting Sundale. That was the everybody wanted their kids to go to Garden.
Well, Jeff went. My other kids went to Mission.
Everybody wanted to send their kids to Garden, and then Cherry Avenue was the ideal middle school at the time. Live Oak was a ghetto school. Mulcahy is a ghetto school. Las Tules was new, but that was a ghetto school. Cherry Avenue was where everybody wanted to send their kids. They had fantastic teachers on staff.
Well, fortunately, Garden was the closest school, and then Cherry was literally across the street from my house. So
yeah, exactly. But yet you're Western District, even though you could get to Tulare Union walking in 8 minutes. Yeah. And so to basically what I'm saying is I've experienced gerrymandering on crazy levels when it comes to districts and stuff. And so so when we get to the large scale of getting to this kind of stuff, I just got really irritated. My mom sent me and again, let me
explain real quick why it's done large scale. Large scale, it's done. It's done because the party in power in the state wants to basically, it's usually done because we take one district. Let's say we're a republic. We're Texas. We've got an area with a population that we can have 3 districts in. What I want to do is make this district in a way where I get 2 Republican districts and 1 Democrat. And so what ends up coming up out of it is some strange, it's not like It's not nice linear lines. It's this crazy looking thing that looks like a jigsaw puzzle or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Because if I take this little sliver where I know this neighborhood votes almost always Democrat, but it's separated between the big Democrat area with 2 Republican ways, I'll figure out a way to connect the Democrat one. So again, I get 2 Republican districts out of this part of San Antonio or El Paso or whatever town, and then vice versa happens in California. Well, I'm in a predominantly Republican area, so what I want to do is create a district where I know at least a Democrat is going to get elected here. So I create this kooky district where this is going to be a Democrat one, and I'm still not. It's going to be 1 Democrat for 2 Republicans in Fresno, but at least I get 1 out of there because I create some crazy district in order to achieve that.
Yeah, exactly.
And the courts have said, again, this is where the courts have said you can do whatever the hell you want to do for party reasons. Political reasons, you can do it. But if you're doing it in order to create a Hispanic district and a black district or an all-white district, that's where we're going to step in and say that's a violation of the 14th Amendment,
Wild
federal law, a whole variety of things. That's a violation. But when it comes to politics, political parties can do whatever the hell they want to do.
Which I think is disgusting. And I hope that lots of people are more disgusted by it. My mother sent me a thing this last week and I haven't responded to it. I'm not responding to it. She sent me an image, basically like Gavin Newsom being the savior because of this whole thing. And I really just wanted to send back. I'm just like, hey, Mom, 2 wrongs don't make a right. Like, if you're upset about what's going on in Texas, then you should also be upset with what Gavin Newsom's doing. Like, again, in my opinion, you should not, if you're upset that somebody is doing something, like, that's the whole concept of what I was talking about earlier with water polo. Like, no matter how dirty these people are playing, I'm not going to stoop down there and go and do it. And you're like, well, we need somebody to like get down in the mud or whatever. And I'm like, that's not how this should work. You should be disgusted by that and then call for and demand for change.
Let's do our beer of the week. And then I want to continue this because I think this is the bigger question. This is where we need to this is a big topic that we need to talk about, which is just where politics is in. And this gerrymandering thing is just the latest
tip of the iceberg.
Just
the latest.
Beer number 2.
The streets of Bakersfield. Is this our first time?
I think it is.
Man.
And actually, so I procured this. This is Streets of Bakersfield from Temblor Brewing Company in Bakersfield.
And if you don't know the song reference, I'm so sorry for you.
We have a friend, one of our beer friends. God bless him. I'm not going to name him. I don't think he listens to the show, but I'm just going to name him. He's always got a lot of scuttlebutt about California breweries, and I've just come to learn that most of it's like catty housewives of Orange County bullshit. He had said that this brewing company was going out of business and they were selling their operations to Firestone and something like that. So a friend of the show, Nolan, has been very helpful in trying to help me find a pickup truck to replace the one I lost. So we took a trip down to Bakersfield 2 Sundays ago.
Nice.
2 Saturdays ago. That was 2 Saturdays ago. Anyway, to look at a couple pickup trucks that had popped up on Facebook. Nolan's very good at like, that's a piece of shit. There was one truck that looked spectacular, and he was like, that's not the original fan. And like 30 seconds later, the guy like basically admitting that all but the cab had been replaced.
Damn.
So I was like, yeah, this is why I bring you, because I can tell if it's nice, but he knows what an original engine for a 2006 GMC Sierra or Chevy equivalent supposed to look like. I don't. So I trust him when he says, yeah, it's a good price, or let's talk him down by $1,000, and if they'll take it, then we can buy it. So anyway, we go down and look at 3 trucks in Bakersfield, and it's around dinner time. And I'm like, let's go in and see if Temblor is still in business, because they're showing up on the map, and we drove past it like 20 minutes ago.
Did you talk to him? Did you say, are you guys going out of business? You guys getting bought by fires?
So we went in there. I will say, So it's a huge location. Again, if you're looking to start a brewery, just don't overexpand too quickly. This is what seems to be killing everybody, is overexpansion. It's a very large location. They had probably 20 taps.
Oh, wow.
And a kitchen.
Nice.
I would say, I think 14 of the taps were other breweries.
Okay.
But I saw no signs of them going out of business.
Oh, you didn't ask, though?
No, I didn't ask. But I mean, there were, again, it was like a Saturday evening or a Sunday evening. I don't remember what day it was. And there was people in there. They had a live band playing, and we had tacos from the kitchen. It wasn't as good as Able Baker, but it was still pretty good.
Nice.
So we used to be able to get this Streets of Bakersfield in Tulare, and I hadn't seen it in a while. And so we could take cans to go. So I bought 2 6-packs of it. So
it's a fantastic beer. It's sweeter than I remember.
It is sweeter, and it is kind of on the New Zealand scale, but I still love it. It's a 7% alcohol. It doesn't say what it's brewed with. And you got to love the name. So,
yep. It is. I'm not going to say it's the top 100 country songs of all time, but it probably cracks in the top 200 country songs of all time.
But it's right.
Buck Owens and Dwight Yoakam solidifying the Bakersfield sound. Streets of Bakersfield. It goes crazy around this place.
And I'll give them credit. They bought it. They either bought or are leasing a location right next door to the Buck Owens.
Nice. The Crystal Palace.
Crystal Palace. I mean, it's
which
like a
was
block.
up for
It's like a
sale.
block north. So it's right there in the old part of Bakersfield. That's
nice.
Bakersfield Sound. So
I love.
But yes, I intentionally bought 2 6-packs, partially because you and I had mentioned this a couple months ago. Like, well, it'd really be nice to get a can of Streets of Bakersfield. I hadn't had that in a while.
And they do make a knockoff or a different version. It's their double IPA. It's called the Streets of Dankersfield, and it's pretty good too.
They did not have that, at least for cans. So,
oh yeah.
Okay. So I think this gerrymandering topic is a perfect illustration of where we're at in American politics, where everything is distilled by, I invent something, or let's just not even be that. Let's just say one side decides to do something, which that's not whether one side decided to start doing something or not. One side decides to say, hey, you're doing this and it's wrong, and I'm going to make a big deal about it. And then when I'm in power, I'm going to do the same thing in order to teach you a lesson.
Which is the dumbest fucking thing I've ever heard.
Well, and I will say the peak of this started with Trump in 2016.
Yeah.
And I will admit, and I will admit, again, I have no problem admitting I'm wrong. I just wish I wasn't as wrong as much as I am. I was animated by a lot of that stuff the first go around with Trump of, all right, you want some of that? I'll dish you back some of your own medicine. It's not doing anything other than making people more mad and making people more on one side or the other, more historically illiterate because they think the other side invented something and now I'm the victim of it. No one's being honest about, again, I would imagine most people who've been reading about gerrymandering think it's some new thing that Texas invented when, no, like I said, it's existed going all the way back to the Republic. And this cycle of eye for an eye, if we're going to get out of where we're at in America politically, this is no different than what we've been talking about with whether it be personal violence or Israel and Palestine or Ukraine and Russia. The only way out of this is for someone to be the big person in the room. And it might take a generation of people who get mowed over as quote unquote victims because they're trying to do, they're political martyrs. That's not victims, but political martyrs standing up and saying, no, I am not going to feed into this. There's a better way to do this. I'm going to treat my political enemies as I would treat myself. I'm not going to do this. And I think if you're listening to this, yeah, I'm sure this sounds really childish and naive and blah, 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 blah.
lose elections.
I'm sorry. But that is what Jesus wants us to look at the world in a childlike, naive way. And again, very much like the Israel debate and the issue, I'm really glad you brought this up, Colton, because I think
I'm here for you.
Huh?
I said I'm here for you for that. Yeah.
I think this is where Christians are just as wrong on this as we are on Israel as a group. And on this one, I can say everyone, mostly, because this is one where whether you're a left-wing Methodist Episcopalian Christian or an evangelical, non-denominational or Southern Baptist, I think both sides are in this death spiral of, well, you want to do it that way? Then I can do it that way. This isn't just where you have a segment of Christianity buying hook, line, and sinker what Israel's saying, or a segment of Christianity buying whatever's being said about the Ukraine war. We need to defend. This is both sides engaging in this un-Christian-like, un-Jesus-like,
Also unethical
view of, well, you want to do that? Eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, tit for tat, whatever you want to call it, then I'll do the same thing. And what we need is Christians who are in the space saying, no, this is wrong. We're not going to do it. I'm going to sacrifice politically to show you this is a better way to do it.
Yeah.
And if you're listening to this and rolling your eyes and saying, well, that's naive, I'm sorry. By the world standards, Christians are naive.
Yeah.
And the more corrupt the world becomes, the more naive and childish we sound. And there's a difference. There are plenty of people that I see on the internet and see on X and hear politicians. I'm not talking about a worldly naivete. There's plenty of that. That's inexcusable. There's a lot of people who just are childish and naive and ridiculous. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking from a Christian perspective of no. That's not how we are called to work and engage in the world. And if you find that naive, then that's your problem.
Yeah.
And we really need, much like this whole Palestinian Israel thing, for one person on one side, like Bernie Sanders and Thomas Massey on the Republican side, to come up and say, like, no, we're not doing this anymore. When we say we're going to do this, we're doing it for country. We're doing it because it's the right thing to do. It's because it's best for the American people. It's because it's removing the cycle where party and ideology is first at the expense of the country.
Yep.
And I'm sorry. Like, I've grown up most of my life identifying as conservative to libertarian. Yes, at some point your ideals are great, but those ideals can then sell out the country because, my principles.
Well, and actually, I was like, I'm still more inclined to people that are accepting of your principles, but when you're just doing shit for your fucking party, that shit makes me even more pissed off. Again,
well, and that's what
we've had that conversation several times on this podcast where it's like, if you really want to piss me off, is where you sit there and say it's for the good of my party and therefore it has nothing to do about what's best for people.
Yeah. Which is ironic. That, I mean, that's what Washington and the founders warned a lot. And I mean, Washington famously in his farewell address warned about, but it's also, party is warned against. It's one of the most common things brought up in the Federalist Papers by Madison and Adams and Hamilton, of party becoming the thing that people hold themselves most to. And
and the hard part is, like, you don't even realize that you bought into, well, then my rights aren't going to be protected if I don't vote with mine. I've heard so many, and that's like, I've heard it about for the Obama administration, Republicans are going to lose this, they're going to lose this, they're going to lose that. The Trump administration, gays aren't going to have rights, these people aren't going to have rights, blah, blah, blah. And has any of that happened? again, this is where I know it seems dumb to say, but I really, 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 really want every single person to look at their life and ask the question, how much has my personal life changed from president to president, and whether or not that was caused by the president of the United States? Because we treat it like it's something that has legitimately caused effect. Now, there are things that the president cannot control, such as world wars. They can control whether we get involved with them or not. But there are certain things where, the housing market crash, you can blame it on Bush or Obama if you wish.
Now, the housing crash was government. Government was responsible, but not president responsible.
Yeah, exactly. So you can blame that if you want, but you can't sit there and blame the housing. You can't blame 2008, 2009 on Bush or Obama, in my opinion.
No, the housing market would have crashed if Obama was president. It was corruption between government and big finance, and
it was the same thing with the Great Depression. Who's the president that gets blamed for the Great Depression? He was the guy in power when it happened. It was like
Hoover,
and he was like, "Dude, there was 2 other presidents before me that were just letting this shit happen,
right.
like letting the credit crisis happen." And then it became time to collect, But he's the one that gets attributed with it and gets put down as one of the worst presidents of all time. But he literally had nothing to do with the Great Depression. he went on just feeling like he could just do business as normal.
Look, I'm no fan of Jimmy Carter. I think Jimmy Carter was ineffective in a lot of ways, but Carter got blamed for the economy during his years, and that economy was largely to blame from Nixon, because Nixon had taken us off the gold standard, which is a monumental change, and moved us over to this fiat currency situation. And then you had oil going on, which Carter didn't have any control over, and so he got a lot of the stuff he actually got blamed for wasn't his fault. He was just he didn't have the silver forked tongue that Bill Clinton had to be able to talk his way out of it and make people feel good about it. In fact, he stood up and basically told everybody, "Put your big boy pants on, we're Americans." And it was regarded as the worst political speech of all time. So, I never thought, the irony is also, cheers to Carter. He was the man who deregulated the beer industry in the United States.
Woo!
So woo-hoo!
Shout out Carter. Yeah, so I mean, again, we put party first, but yet at the end of the day, and there's always this panic, there's always this whatever, but at the end of the day, your life hasn't changed. Nothing's changed. That it continues to be about what it is that you do on a regular basis. You might have slightly higher taxes. You might have X, Y, and Z. Your kids, there's always kind of like this boogeyman about, oh no, we're going to have this in our education system or this or that. And at the end of the day, those boogeymen never end up showing their face. It's gradual over time. This isn't something where it's like, because everybody seems like it's immediate. And there was even time where my sister was like, "Oh yeah, did you know that they're going to do this and do that if this person gets elected?" And I was like, "Where are the facts on that? Where are the facts?" And she had been reading or listening to propaganda on her phone. Same thing with my mother on this last election. She'd be like, "Oh yeah, this happened or this happened." And I was like, "Mom, where are the facts on that?" She's like, "Well, I heard somebody say it on TikTok." That doesn't mean a thing. That means nothing. But we get so wrapped up in that, and these people can make us sit there and say, "Oh man, if our party doesn't win, then this happens."
Well, I do think we're at an inflection point in the United States where both political sides are infatuated with Caesarism, where they want Caesarism when their guy is in control. And I do think I do think while I agree with you largely, when a new president comes in, it turns into the new boogeyman, and all these, the sky's falling or this guy's going to make sliced bread great again, is largely bullshit. The more and more that we push towards Caesarism, where I didn't vote for Trump this go around, and I will say Trump is largely doing things unilaterally under presidential order, a lot of stuff that he doesn't have any control to do, and no one's stopping him because he's got Republicans in Congress who are like, "Oh, we don't care because we don't have to vote for it because we're cowards and we're not actually leaders or anything. We're just."
Well, yeah, and I mean,
and so I am concerned that we're moving towards this Caesarism where you have one president just come in and say, like, I can do this, and if there's no one to stop him, it's just like, all right.
But again, that's been going on for now 100 years, where it's like, let's continue to see how far we can push the executive order.
This is true.
Yeah, no,
this
I know.
Is true.
It's just,
but things get worse and worse and worse, as it did in Rome, where things just get worse and worse and worse. And
yeah, we want an emperor. We don't want to. Well, and I've always felt that way about the president, where there are lots of things that the president does that I've seen in my lifetime where I've been like, that's not the fact that you are asking the president, whether you like it or not. I still believe that his job description is the executive branch. I don't think the president should have any say over budgets other than military budgets. I don't feel like he should have any say over healthcare. Where the fuck does that come from?
No, I agree.
That's not a presidential thing.
No, I agree that he should. I agree with you. I think the president of the United States should largely, if I was elected president, I'd sit back and say, if I was asked what should the Department of Education budget be, that is for the legislature to decide, and whatever they pass, I will then faithfully execute and spend.
Yeah, and here's also the thing.
And I even say that with the military budget.
I think that most people, it's not even if you're the president. I think that you, as somebody, and this is how I've always viewed about fucking presidents. Now listen, I don't mind an outsider's opinion every once in a while coming in saying, hey, can we change this? Can we make that whatever? But I got to say, one of the things that pisses us off as teachers in our job is when we have somebody who gets moved or promoted up after only 3 years of working in the classroom and then tells us how to run a fucking classroom, and they haven't spent longer periods of time in the fucking classroom, and all you wanted to do was just become an administrator after that. That shit pisses me off. And so if I take that and I then amplify it to the fucking, political scale, where it's like, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. You've been a lawyer that's only worked in this or this. What the fuck do you know about public education?
Right.
But we expect that therefore the president is supposed to have an opinion and an answer for all of these things underneath the sun. And where I'm like, I hope that they turn to their experts and whatever on that subject, because they know fuck all about it. So I don't know. That's kind of how I.
Well, I think. Yeah. Well, I mean, that's a whole other discussion. I think when education's a good example of when it's at the federal level, it should be just we're dishing out money to states and letting the states do whatever they want to do. And if Arkansas wants to do what they do with education money, people in California shouldn't be griping about it. Let Arkansas be Arkansas. So
yeah.
And also, D.C. shouldn't be telling Arkansas how to educate their kids. That doesn't mean you're going to get better outcomes in Montana and Florida and Arkansas with Montana and Arkansas and Florida people making that determination. But at least they're closer. Again, as I started this whole show about, I was in northeastern Oklahoma for 3 days. It's a different world than the world I live in 99% of the time.
Yeah.
Is it dramatically different? No, it's not Kandahar, Afghanistan. It's not London. It's not Nairobi, Kenya, but it's different. And so for me to assume that I know what issues are going on in Tulsa, Oklahoma and Muskogee, Oklahoma, and what they know what is going on in Los Angeles or Bakersfield or Tulare or Fresno is ridiculous. They are slightly different cultures. They're different ecosystems, different economies, all kinds of things.
Right.
And that's my biggest problem with Washington is just our system, our republic was set up to be run by as local people as possible. And we inverted that after World War. Well, it started before World War II. It started around, well, if you really want to get technical, this is another reason why I hate war. It started with the Civil War at a minor scale. Then it accelerated around before and after World War I, and then it maximized at around World War II, and then stayed that way because we had the Cold War of just maximizing Washington, D.C. power. And we turned into an empire. The United States is an empire. And empires and free republics do not match. You cannot have both. You can have one or the other. And we live in an empire right now. And I would argue we live in a crumbling empire. We are crumbling. We're not crumbling because we lost wars in the Middle East and we don't know how to win wars. We're not losing because we're not finishing off the Russians in Ukraine, or we're not winning. No, that's not why. We're crumbling from within.
Yeah.
We've become fat, drunk, and stupid country, and we're just crumbling from it within. We're literally we like drinking on this episode. I got no problem with alcohol, but we have become an overly inebriated and drug-induced country. We revel in how stupid and uneducated we are, and we somehow think that the cheapest job for the cheapest price is a great way to run an economy, and anything else is, we're basically like a bad corporation. I don't know where, I don't know. It's just, so the sooner we get back to Californians governing Californians and Central Valley people even having more say-so in how they're governed, and let San Francisco people govern them, and let Omaha people govern Omaha people, and let Manhattan people govern themselves, and everyone not even just govern, just be like, all right, well, I don't really know. That's a weird way to live.
Yeah.
I don't understand having to go to I don't understand why one needs to go to the grocery store every night to get food. So I want to go to New York City to find out why you don't go to Costco and shop for a week.
Yeah.
And then you walk around for 2 minutes. Oh, yeah, I get it. And I didn't even step foot in an apartment building.
Right.
Now I know why everyone eats out 5 times a week.
Yep.
Whereas I sit in my nice 2,200 square foot in Tulare house and say, why would anyone go out to eat every week? I have a nice kitchen, blah, 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 blah. Because you don't live in fucking Manhattan.
Yeah. You don't have a one burner stove
on
a countertop.
With a 2-bedroom, 900 square foot apartment that I'm paying $1,800 with rent control with, that I got because my grandma died.
Right.
And ran against rent control. Yeah. Like, well, you don't live in New York City because.
Yep.
So just learn to just be like, oh, that's weird. I don't know why they do that. They need to do it our way, or let's do it the way they do it. No, just people are usually pretty good at figuring out how to live the way they need to live. And then, you still grouse around we spent 10 minutes complaining about how they set boundaries around here, but for school, but I don't think it was all personal reasons for it. I think there were attempts to balance out socioeconomic and other things, and who knows. But I know who to complain to when I don't like it, and I can go to the city council meeting or the school board meeting to complain about it. But when Sacramento does it, that's a 3-hour drive just to go up there, and who am I going to complain to anyway? And no one gives a shit there anyway, because the only people they listen to are people who can pay $5,000 steak dinners and wine and dine them and give them money to their political campaign, let alone Washington.
Yep.
I had dinner with our congressman
Yep.
in D.C., and I was told to my face, you know who we don't listen to? When Rush Limbaugh and all the talk radio right-wing people call in and complain about something that I'm going to vote on, we don't listen to them.
Right.
And you know why we won't listen to them? Because they're going to vote for me anyway.
Yep.
Oh, that's good to know.
Yep. I mean,
and it's not irrational.
Nope.
It's not irrational at all. But, so much for, calling up your congressman and telling him you're upset about something. So, all right. Well, we will on the next episode, we're going to talk again about pacifism and violence. It comes out of a little quick podcast that we heard 2 weeks ago.
That'll be next Saturday.
We'll do it next Saturday. Maybe we'll try to get Andy on, because the first time we did this was with Andy. So maybe we can get a little discussion again.
It'll be college football Saturday.
Yep. Well, college football. There's a slew of games this weekend, but yeah, main weekend starts 10 days from now. So, all right. Well, we thank you for listening to this episode of the Go to Hell podcast. This is episode 130, by the way.
Wow. It's crazy.
130. Seems like we just started. Actually, I when I go through the list of stuff we talked about, I was like, I barely remember that episode. There's some I really remember. Then
you say like we just started. I'm like, it's been over 2 years, which is crazy. Because I'm like, oh wow, it doesn't feel like it's been 2 years.
No, and we didn't have any expectations.
I still don't, honestly.
And so, yeah, episode 130, and we thank everybody who listens, and hope you still enjoy what we're doing. And if you don't, you wouldn't be listening. So if you know people who stop listening, you can tell them to go to hell.
There we go.